Hello everyone, welcome to my first devlog of the year for my game Project Stella. If you're new to the channel and don't know what Project Stella is a game I'm developing based on Jak and Daxter and The Legend of Zelda. And I'm going to start right away by announcing something that I probably should have done a long time ago. I'm on Twitter now, so if you want to follow me, it's at pjstella_game, and I've been posting quick videos there. If you want bite-sized updates, that's a good place to go. Also, another place that might be pretty good to go if you want to see more updates and talk to more people is my Discord server, where sometimes I might be streaming game development and talking to some of the people in my server. Sadly, despite wanting to get a demo out, I wasn't able to. January and February were rough months for me, and burnout was very real. However, I was able to chip away at the game and keep going. Here's what I did. I fixed most of the bugs that were found in the playtest. The ground pound was probably the most notable one, since it was causing the player to clip through the ground after hitting the kill plane. The problem was, when you hit the kill plane, it sends Stella into a bonk state, which is like, it cancels the movement and it does a little bit of a knockback. That wasn't happening for the ground pound, so I solved this by making sure that it does. And then on top of that, I also spawned the player above the ground in order to ensure that they're not going to be clipping into the ground. That solved the problem for flat ground, but there was one other issue where the player was getting stuck in the wall, and this was because of the way the respawn point was being calculated. Essentially what was going on is it was detecting a ledge close to where Stella was standing, and then creating a spawn point behind her, away from the ledge. The problem is if there's a wall where the spawn point is, this will spawn Stella inside of the wall. So I solved this by adding a sphere cast check to make sure that if there is a wall too close to the ledge, then the spawn point will not update. I started working on the menus. I added a pause menu and a utility menu. I'm not actually sure what to call the utility menu, but it's basically the menu that includes player stats, equipment, inventory, map, and journal menus. All of the menus are very bare bones right now. I'm focusing on getting everything set up before I start adding art and making it all flashy. The pause menu functions the way you would expect. If you press pause, it pauses the game, and if you press pause again, it unpauses the game. All of the sub-menus work. You can either press the back button in the menu, or the B or circle button on your controller in order to get back to the parent menu. And this all works for the utility menus as well, though there's a lot more work that needs to be done in that regard. The menu I put the most work in this month was the equipment menu. I wanted it to function similar to the equipment menu in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Each item has a fixed slot in the menu, and when you collect it, the slot is unlocked for use. You can equip each item in the menu by clicking on the item. Right now, this menu is at a good starting point, but I'll be adding more functionality later on. The menu does actually work for changing Stella's armor in game too. To do this, Stella's body had to be separated into different pieces to reduce the amount of clipping while animations were playing. Each armor piece corresponds with a list of body meshes that the main armor slot checks against to see which meshes need to be visible. Boots and leg items work similarly. The pants will be made up of multiple pieces to accommodate the fact that boots could end at ankle height, below the knee, or above the knee. Each time you equip a pair of boots or a leg item, like Stella's blue pants, the inventory will check to see which pieces need to be visible in order to reduce the clipping. This is also how gloves and chest items will function in the future. Since the last video, I imported Stella's new outfit into the game. I also started working on a new set of armor, which is still very much a work in progress. I imported it anyways, because I wanted to test out the new equipment system, but it's basically going to be a knight armor set that Stella will be able to get in later parts of the game. The leg armor for this set won't just be her pants. I just don't quite know what the armor will actually look like. I also added a leather armor set. It's supposed to serve as the first upgrade in a list of basic armor sets. The idea being that there are a handful of basic armor sets that are easy to acquire, but they each get stronger and stronger as you buy later and later sets. But I also plan on having some special armor pieces and armor sets that involve a bit of adventuring to acquire. Swapping items will be instant for armor. If Stella is holding her weapon or mid-swing, rather than disallowing the player from swapping the item, Stella will finish the action and then put her weapon away before swapping the model. I have to admit I took this directly from Ocarina of Time, and I think it's a great solution to the problem. One thing I've always liked is when you use your sword or bow to hit switches in Zelda. Another game that did this well, and is also a huge inspiration to me, is Pseudo-Regalia. For my game, I want Stella to be able to hit all manner of interactable objects in order to activate them. Currently this only works for the newly added switch, as well as the chest. The switch is directional, so you can't just hit it from any side, and the chest can only be opened from the front or the side in 180 degrees. I plan on adding more attackable interactables, but for now, these are the only two. Stella can now also gain health and experience. She does this by collecting health or XP orbs. The health orbs will come in variable sizes, healing 1 or more hit point, and the experience orbs will do the same to her experience bar. Right now, it's all still very early, but I'm planning on having a system where you can spend experience to upgrade Stella's health, magic, and damage, or to unlock new abilities. Stella also takes fall damage now. She has a minimum and maximum fall distance. If she falls at the minimum fall distance, she will only lose 1 hit point, but if she falls at the maximum fall distance or greater, she will lose all of her health. Anywhere between the minimum and the maximum will be a percentage of her health. Currently, the landing animations that I have for taking fall damage are very placeholder. They kind of look a little goofy. One's a superhero landing and one is just a splat. So I have to work on that a little bit. I also added a handful of other things, including a few animations for taking damage, an animation for bonking against a wall, as well as finally implementing a fade to black whenever the character falls through a kill plane. One of the things that I'm most proud of since the last video is the new skybox. The new skybox has a day-night cycle, it has stars, and it also has cloud cover. It's actually a very large and messy shader I made in Shader Graph, and it uses information from a script to determine the time of day, color, and the position of the sun and the moon. Currently the moon rotates opposite the sun, but I do plan on having an actual moon that rotates independently of the sun, as well as having moon phases. In addition to the skybox, I created a handful of shaders as well. The water shader is a work in progress, mostly pieced together from a bunch of different tutorials, but the terrain shader is what I'm most excited about. Basically, it's a dynamic shader that takes multiple textures as well as a vertex color in order to create a final look that appears like a cohesive hand-painted texture. The normal maps handle the detail, which is top lit, and dependent on the direction of each face. This means I can sculpt in detail to the terrain and have it be represented in the details of the shader. Next is a set of textures that handles ambient occlusion, depth, and edge highlights. And finally, the vertex color is created from a set of geometry nodes in Blender, where convex vertices and edges are highlighted and concave vertices and edges are shaded. This is then saved into an attribute and exported to Unity. What's great about this material is that no matter which way an object is oriented, it will always be top lit. And with a little bit of layering, the material goes from being flat and repetitive to being dynamic and interesting. On to the most important update so far. There's a new enemy. Meet the Rolling Lizard, name pending. I made this character on stream in my Discord, which you should join by the way, there's a link in the description. Currently the model and rig is very basic, and the textures are very basic gradients that I generated in Blender. I still have to paint all of the detail, but the enemy isn't just a static model that I'm going to put in the testing playground for show. I actually have the enemy implemented. Currently its behavior is simple, needs work. It follows a path in a loop until the player is within line of sight. When the player is spotted, it does its attack, curling up into a ball and rolling at the player. If the lizard hits the player, it'll stop and unroll on its back, flailing its legs in the air until it stops panicking and decides to use its tail to flip back over. If the lizard misses, then it overshoots by a bit and then unrolls and flails again. This unroll and flail moment is the opening for the player to attack. Currently the player can attack the enemy whenever, but I want this enemy to be armored and difficult to attack until it ends up on its back. There's a bunch of cool stuff I did in order to get the enemy working. For instance, the enemy has a list of attacks. These attacks are made up of scriptable objects which hold all of the data relevant to the attack, and a float which acts as a cooldown timer. When the player sees the enemy, it looks through the list for the first available attack. This allows me to prioritize attacks from most to least important in the list. The original idea was that the rolling lizard would do the rolling attack, and then charge Stella and bite at her ankles. The roll attack would have a long cooldown, and the lizard could get a couple of bites in before running off and rolling at Stella again. But I prefer the way it works right now. This method will work for other enemies later on. So let's talk about the demo level. What I have planned for the demo level is a tutorial level, a basic linear gauntlet that introduces the player to platforming and combat, all wrapped up in a single story quest. The demo level is mostly finished, But the problem is that I have a lot of small things to do before it's presentable, and this task list is what I believe caused me to burn out. So I've decided to pivot. Instead of releasing a polished demo, I'm going to release a gray box demo that showcases gameplay. I've already started working on some ideas for the level, but it's going to follow a basic dungeon layout, and graphics won't be prioritized, at least not initially. I think this will allow me to make sure that by the time I release the main demo, people will have had the opportunity to try out the demo and test the gameplay. That's it for updates to my game. However, I also joined another indie game as an animator. The game is called Gear Grit, and much like my game, it's based on the Jak and Daxter games, though mostly on Jak 2 and 3. The game has a Steam page now, so be sure to wishlist it. You can also follow the game's progress by checking out Pandan at Weston Mitchell on Twitter. I'm really excited to be working on this project. I've already learned a ton about animation while working on this game. Only a handful of the animations are mine, which replaced some of the placeholder animations that were made to get the game going. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll make sure to post a video when the demo is available to play. But in the meantime, if you want to see more updates, be sure to check out my Twitter or my Discord server. Those are the places that I go whenever I want to post quick updates, and they tend to be updates that reveal more than what I show in these videos, and far earlier as well. If you like the video, please leave a like. If you want to say anything or have any questions, you can leave a comment down below. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. You can follow me at supertrooper_art on Instagram. You can also support me by donating to my Ko-fi, and there's a link to that in the description. And thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Super trooper, super trooper, super trooper, and he sells soup.